At first, none of them believed a word of it. The war had taught them that letters were weapons, that ink carried lies more deadly than bullets. So when an American officer smiled and said, "Write to your families, I will deliver it," the women burst into laughter. Deliver? To who? The dead? One whispered. But that night, under the dim light of the barracks, paper and pencils appeared. Anna wrote the first line with trembling hands. "Mama, I'm alive." She sealed it with tears, not hope. Weeks later, when a soldier shouted her name and handed her an envelope, one marked, "From Bremen, Germany," the entire camp fell silent. Spring of 1945. Camp Hearn, Texas. Thousands of miles from the smoking ruins of Europe, behind fences of steel and sunlight, lived women who once believed they were fighting for the glory of the Reich. Now they stood in line, clutching tin cups and memories that hurt to touch. The air smelled of dust, cornbread, and diesel. The war was ending, but no one knew what ending meant anymore. Some days the Americans smiled. Other days, they just looked through them. Then came the announcement. A tall officer in khaki stepped onto a wooden crate, his accent clean and unfamiliar. "Officer, ladies, the war is nearly over. You are allowed to write to your families, 1 page each. We will deliver it." The words hung in the air like smoke. Laughter burst from the back of the crowd, harsh, bitter, and hollow. Liesel, sarcastic. "Write? To whom? The ruins?" Anna. "Maybe he means we can write to the crows flying over Bremen." Marta, quietly. "No, he looks serious." The officer continued, calm and steady. "Officer, through the Red Cross, your letters will reach Germany. Tell them you are safe. A word that no longer had meaning. When the crowd dispersed, the women returned to their barracks. Low wooden huts filled with the smell of soap and straw mattresses. On every table lay a single sheet of paper and a dull pencil. No guard stood over them. No orders, no threats. Just silence and waiting. Anna sat on her bunk staring at the paper. Her hands trembled. How do you write to a mother who might be gone? How do you explain that you're alive when half the world is dead? She remembered her last letter from home, the one that never came. Before the war, her mother used to write every Sunday about the lilac bushes, the bakery on Lindenstrasse, the neighbor's new dog. Now, all she could remember was her mother's face the day she left. Proud, scared, and trying not to show it. Anna, whispering, "Mama, if you can read this, I'm alive." Her pencil scratched across the paper. Each word felt heavy, almost forbidden. At the far end of the room, Marta knelt by her cot, her eyes closed in prayer. Liesel, usually defiant, stared at the paper but didn't move. Liesel. "It's a trick. They'll read them, laugh, and burn them." Marta. "And if they don't," Liesel, "then we'll still be fools." Outside, the camp loudspeaker crackled. A man's voice reading names, news orders. Inside, pencils moved slowly, painfully. That night, dozens of letters were written, not with hope, but with the last breath of belief. As Anna folded her note and slid it into the small brown envelope, she whispered, "Even if you never see this, Mama, at least I tried." The next morning, the guards collected the envelopes. They didn't open them. They didn't say a word. They simply walked away, carrying pieces of broken hearts in their hands. Fade out, the hum of engines. Letters rustling in a canvas bag. The letters were gone, carried off like tiny pieces of faith. For days, the camp buzzed with uneasy whispers. Liesel. "They'll never send them." Marta. "Maybe they already did." Anna. "No, it's too quiet." Silence became a new kind of torture. The women went about their chores, washing uniforms, peeling potatoes, repairing nets for the local farms. But every glance toward the gate carried a question. Did my letter make it? One evening, Anna was assigned to help in the camp office. She stood behind a desk piled with boxes marked Mail, Red Cross. Through the open window, she saw an American clerk, a young man with sandy hair, carefully stamping envelopes, not opening, just stamping. Anna, nervously, "Do they really go across the ocean?" Clerk, smiling faintly, Yes, ma'am. Everyone. Even the ones with tears on them. That night, Anna couldn't sleep. The sound of typewriters in the distance mixed with the soft humming of women praying. Some had started writing second letters secretly, just in case the first vanished. Others swore they'd never waste another word again. Days blurred into weeks. The American mail trucks came and went. No one called names. No letters returned. Narrator. The women began to wonder if hope itself had been censored. But then, one hot afternoon, a shout echoed across the yard. Guard yelling, "Mail delivery!" Red Cross shipment just arrived. Everything stopped. Shovels dropped. Pots clattered. Narrator softly building suspense. They ran toward the fence, hearts pounding, not knowing that the next few minutes would change everything they believed about mercy. When the Red Cross truck stopped at the gate, time itself seemed to hold its breath. A soldier jumped down, carrying 2 heavy mailbags stamped Geneva. The Americans formed a line, checking tags, sorting envelopes. Inside the fence, dozens of women stood frozen, unsure whether to hope or hide. Liesel whispering, "If this is another trick, I'll never forgive myself for believing." Marta, "Then don't believe. Just listen." But the loudspeaker never called their names. The mail was meant for the men's camp down the road, not for them. The women watched helplessly as the trucks rolled away in a cloud of dust, leaving behind nothing but silence. Narrator. Silence, the cruelest sound of captivity. It made the strong suspicious, the weak desperate, and the hopeful foolish. Days turned into weeks. They went back to their routines, peeling potatoes in the mess hall, mending uniforms for soldiers who no longer frightened them. Some found comfort in the smallest things, the smell of freshly baked cornbread from the American kitchen, the way the guards said "good morning" without malice, the laughter of children in the nearby town drifting over the fence. Yet every night Anna returned to her bunk, staring at the wooden ceiling, whispering her mother's name. Anna, softly, "If you could hear me, Mama, just once." One morning during laundry duty, she spotted the same American clerk walking toward the barracks with a small satchel slung over his shoulder. His expression was unreadable. "Anna, is it for us?" Clerk, smiling faintly. "We'll see." He opened the satchel and placed a small bundle of envelopes on the table. The women stared, not breathing. Narrator, whispering, "It was the smallest pile of letters, yet it felt heavier than the war itself." One by one, names were called. Hands trembled. Tears fell. Some letters were addressed in handwriting they hadn't seen in years. Shaky, desperate, but real. Marta, crying, "She's alive. My mother's alive." Anna's name was not among them. She smiled weakly and whispered, "Maybe tomorrow." But that night, lying awake, she heard something that stopped her heart. The sound of footsteps outside her window, and an American voice saying, "Tomorrow, we call the rest of the names." At dawn, the camp woke to an unfamiliar sound. Laughter. Not the hollow, nervous kind that filled the barracks before inspections, but real laughter, like something had been reborn. Outside, 2 American soldiers unloaded canvas bags from a Jeep marked Red Cross Mail Service. The women froze where they stood. Officer calling out, "Mail for Camp Hearn Female Division." The words hit like thunder. A moment of disbelief, then chaos. Dozens of women rushed forward, pressing against the fence, hands trembling. Inside the mess hall, a makeshift table became the post office of redemption. Stacks of envelopes, stained, creased, marked with strange red stamps, were sorted by name. Clerk, reading, Liesel Baumann, Marta Kruger, Anna Vogel. Anna blinked. Her name. For a moment she couldn't move. Liesel, grinning through tears. "Go, Anna. They called you." She stepped forward slowly, her heart pounding louder than the marching drills she once endured. The clerk handed her a small, thin envelope, soft at the edges, the ink faint but unmistakably German. The handwriting, her mother's. Anna's knees almost gave out. She pressed the paper to her lips before daring to open it. Inside, 3 lines written in shaky pen strokes. "My daughter, they told us you were gone." Every night I pray to see your face again. If this reaches you, know that your mother never stopped believing her breath caught. She laughed, then cried, the paper shaking in her hands. Anna, sobbing. She's alive. She's really alive. Around her the room erupted. Laughter, screams, sobs. Women clung to each other, reading letters aloud through tears. Some fell to their knees. Others kissed the envelopes as if they were sacred. It wasn't the paper or the ink. It was proof that the world outside still existed. Even the guards stepped back, watching silently. One of them, a young corporal, turned away and wiped his eyes. Outside, the Texas wind carried sounds no one had heard in years. Women singing softly in German, voices rising like prayers through the barbed wire. Marta, to herself. They didn't lie. The Americans didn't lie. For the first time since the war began, these women weren't enemies. They were daughters, mothers, and wives. Finally heard again. That evening, the camp was quieter than it had ever been. But it wasn't the silence of despair anymore. It was the sound of women breathing in hope for the first time in years. Inside the barracks, candle flames danced over tear-stained faces as letters were unfolded again and again, as if the words might disappear if not held tightly enough. Marta, reading. Papa's bakery is gone, but he says there's talk of rebuilding. He writes, your room still smells like lilacs. Liesel, laughing through tears. My brother, he said he saw our old dog. Can you imagine? Even the dog survived more than we did. They laughed. Then they cried again, because between every line of hope, there was loss. Each letter was a mixture of ashes and light. One woman, Greta, stared blankly at her paper. Her letter was only 2 sentences long. Your husband fell at Stettin. Your son is missing. But we are proud of you. Her fingers shook as she read it aloud. No one spoke. Marta took her hand and whispered, Marta, you are not alone anymore. It was strange. In captivity, surrounded by fences, they suddenly felt freer than they had in years. Because truth, even painful truth, was more liberating than silence. By the next day, the Americans began sorting another round of mail. They'd received thousands of letters from Germany in just 1 week, shipped across the Atlantic in Red Cross crates. Official reports would later record over 200,000 letters exchanged between POWs and their families in 1945 alone. Words crossing oceans faster than forgiveness itself. The women started writing again, longer this time, not just about their health, but about their hearts. They wrote about American kindness, the work, the gardens they tended inside the camp. One woman described how a guard had given her extra milk when she coughed. Another drew a picture of the Texas sunset, writing, the sky here looks like fire, Mama, but it's not burning. Even the guards noticed. Letters turned the air softer, the mornings calmer. Young guard quietly to clerk. You ever seen prisoners smile like that? Clerk. No, but I guess home can travel further than bullets. That night Anna wrote again, her second letter. She told her mother about Marta's singing, the English classes, the vegetable garden that had started behind the laundry hut. And at the end, she added a single line that made her pause before sealing it. Mama, the people we were taught to hate are the ones keeping us alive. She folded the paper, pressed her hand over it, and whispered, Anna, send this fast, before the world changes its mind. The next morning, the mail truck arrived again, slower this time, as if carrying ghosts. The women lined up as usual, hearts pounding. But among the envelopes, one stood out. It was small, cream-colored, and blank. No name, no return address, just a faint mark from a child's crayon. The clerk looked confused. Clerk, no name on this one. Must be a mistake, Anna. Maybe it's for someone who's gone. He hesitated, then placed it on the table anyway. No one moved, until Helga, a quiet woman from Hamburg, stepped forward. Helga, softly. May I see it? She had never received a letter before, not once. She'd stopped writing after losing her husband and son to bombings, but when she lifted the envelope, her hands trembled like she was holding a heartbeat. Inside was a small folded paper, a child's drawing, 2 stick figures holding hands under a crooked sun, and beneath it, in clumsy handwriting, "For Mama, for Mama." The barracks went silent. Even the guards standing near the door lowered their heads. Helga covered her mouth, her breath catching. Tears streamed down her face, quiet, unbroken. Helga, whispering, "It's his hand. My little Otto drew like this. My boy's alive." She pressed the paper to her chest as if afraid it would vanish. Narrator softly, "It was just a child's drawing. But in that moment, it was proof that life could still find its way through war, ink, and oceans." Marta began to hum a lullaby, an old German tune about spring returning after winter. Others joined softly, one by one, until the sound filled the camp. Fragile, trembling, but alive. The young American corporal at the door swallowed hard. Guard, murmuring, "We all have mothers." Anna looked at him, surprised by the gentleness in his voice. For the first time, the fence between them didn't feel like a wall. It felt like a mirror. That evening, when the sky turned gold, Anna wrote her third letter. Not out of fear this time, but gratitude. Anna, writing, "Mama, today I saw something I'll never forget. A woman found her child again through a drawing. Maybe the world isn't lost after all." She folded it neatly and sealed it with steady hands. Behind every uniform, behind every language, there was the same ache: to be heard, to be remembered, to be forgiven. June 1946. The war had been over for a year, yet inside Camp Hearn the day still carried the rhythm of captivity. Roll call, rations, waiting, until that morning when the gate guards didn't shout orders. They simply stood aside. A single truck entered, painted white, a large red cross on its doors. Behind it, buses waited with engines purring, as if impatient to carry 1,000 untold stories back to the world. Freedom had arrived, not with fanfare, but with the hush of disbelief. Inside the barracks, the women stared at one another. No one moved at first. Freedom, after all, was harder to believe than imprisonment. Marta whispering, "Is it real this time?" Liesel smiling nervously, "Real enough to make my hands shake." They packed in silence. No suitcases, just small bundles of folded uniforms, scraps of fabric, and the precious letters they had guarded through every inspection. Each envelope was worn smooth at the edges, some tied with twine, others tucked carefully inside hymn books. Narrator, they were leaving the camp as they had lived in it, carrying more words than possessions. When Anna reached her cot, she found one more envelope resting on her pillow. It was from the American clerk, the same young man who had stamped the first letters. Inside, a single sheet. "Miss Vogel, the mailman delivers the letters, but you delivered something greater. Belief." Safe journey home, Anna smiled. For the first time, gratitude didn't feel like weakness. The women formed neat lines under the Texas sun. The officers handed out rations, bread, canned peaches, chocolate, and documents stamped release order. Each name called sounded less like a command and more like a resurrection. An American captain addressed them, voice steady, respectful. "Captain, you came to this land as enemies. You leave it as witnesses. Take what you have learned, and never let your children forget that mercy survived the war." No translator was needed. The tone said everything. Many of the women lowered their eyes, overcome by a feeling they hadn't known for years. Dignity. Helga, quietly to Anna, "They fed us when they didn't have to. They wrote back when no one else would." Anna, "And somehow that changed everything." As the buses rolled toward the gate, the women looked back one last time. Where guard towers once loomed, now fluttered laundry lines and a small vegetable garden. Their final gift to the camp. Across Texas plains, through ports and checkpoints, their convoy moved east, through landscapes too wide, too peaceful for memory to trust. At Galveston, they boarded a transport ship bound for Europe. Steel decks, gray horizon, gulls tracing circles above. On the second night at sea, a storm rose. Lightning carved the sky in brief photographs of faces. Women clutching their letters against their chests so the rain wouldn't blur the ink. Anna stood on deck, hair whipping across her face, feeling the ocean's weight beneath her feet. Anna to herself, Once I believed the world ended at our fences. Now I know it only begins when someone listens. Below decks, Marta gathered the others. They read aloud fragments of home. A bakery rebuilt, a church bell ringing again, a child's first day of school among ruins. The words mixed with the ship's creak, turning the dark hull into a floating cathedral of voices. They had survived bombs, hunger, and propaganda. But what truly freed them was correspondence. One heart reaching another across impossible distance. When the ship docked at Bremerhaven, the air smelled of salt and ash. Cities lay flattened like paper burned too long. Yet on the dock stood children waving small flags, some of them holding letters of their own. The women stepped onto German soil barefoot for a moment, feeling the cold ground. Helga knelt, pressed her son's drawing against her chest, and whispered, "Helga, I found my way back, Otto." Nearby, Liesel turned to Anna. "Liesel, do you think we'll ever write them again? The Americans?" "Anna, maybe they're already writing us." That night, in a makeshift shelter beside the ruined port, Anna took out her diary. Its last page waited, blank as the morning sky. Anna, voiceover, writing, "Dear Mama, I'm home. Not the home we lost, but the one we must rebuild. I met kindness where I expected revenge. I saw soldiers carry letters more gently than doctors carry medicine. When the Americans said, 'Write to your family, we'll deliver it,' we laughed. We were wrong. They didn't just deliver words. They delivered us back to ourselves." She tore out the page, folded it, and slipped it into an empty bottle. Walking to the edge of them,